Hi, this is Myra with Boutique Paint. So I have these sample boards that I used to practice my paint inlays, the new product from Iron Orchid Design. And now what do you do with them? You have these little boards, you practice, you know you got that part down, but now you just have boards with flowers on them. So what can you create? Well, this is one example of what I did with one of my boards. I used a combination of two-part, or the resin, the two-part you mix. I do have a video on that, which I will put in the comments. And then this part and this part are clay. This was also the resin. You can see that the clay split as it dried because I glued it on there when it was wet and I painted it when it was wet. I'm fine with that. If you don't want cracking in it, two things. You could either just let the piece dry before you glue it down, or you could use the resin, and it will not do that. As you can see, this did not do that, any cracking. And this piece down here didn't crack either. Not sure, what makes the difference, other than I think it's cool. If you don't, try it a different way. All right, so what I'm doing this one a little different. I'm using this one, from the frames, the new Iron Orchid Design frames mold, but I didn't want the bubble in the inside, and there's a word for it, and I don't remember what that's called, but it's domed. And so when you go to put whatever on top, it's gonna rock. Now you could decoupage something on there. You could do a picture on there, which would be adorable, especially if you were doing like gifts. You could, cut out a picture, do a black and white. That would be way cool. And decoupage it on and then seal it. But I was going to do a cameo on the inside, which is the other Iron Orchid Designs new mold. So I didn't want the dome. So I'm going to show you what I did there to make it hollow on the inside. So you could do this with the resin also. What I would suggest is, if you use the resin, is to pop it out. Don't let it sit in there until it's super hard. But as long as you can do that and it pops out, it's ready. And then you could take a utility knife and cut out the inside. Because I didn't want to waste a lot of clay and do that, I'll show you what I did. If I can get the clay out of the package. So I just went around the edge here and got it in. And then just take your finger it's not picking up. Sometimes it'll pick up when you do that, but you want this to be smooth, since that's going to lay flat on your board. Whenever you do a seam where you're meeting two pieces of clay, really push hard there so that you don't have a seam or a line that shows. Now, because you don't have anything in the center, be careful when you're pulling the excess clay off, because this wants to curl up. So just kind of do it in sections. See, like that. It's wanting to pull up. So I'll continue that way. I'm going to add just a smidge more in there so it's flat. And you'll be able to see if you got some low spots when you go to drag whatever you're using across there. You can also use the new paint blades to clear it off. That works really nicely. It's not taking anything off, obviously, because I just got through doing it. But, so I'm going to flip this out. And you got to be careful because you don't have your center, so it doesn't have really anything to keep its shape. So just try not to handle it. I did let this dry before I did anything else with it, so I could keep its shape. The other thing you could do is leave it in the mold for just a little bit, let it start to crust up, then pull it out of the mold, and that would work nicely too. What I ended up doing, actually, because I was messing around with it, is I did pull it out and it was misshapen. So I just did this part where I'm cutting it out, and then I put it back in the mold and got the shape again, left it in there just for a little bit. I actually think I took a hairdryer to the back of it to kind of give it that crust, and then I pulled it. See, I just moved the whole thing. So don't worry, if you do get it misshapen, you can just pop it back in the mold. Or if you want it more elongated, you can pull it too. If that's what your project, you want your project to look like. Put your own creative twist on it. Spin this again. I'm just taking this utility knife. A razor knife might work a little bit better just because it's smaller. It's a little less heavy to work with. And there's a little teeny tiny little dangle, and I think I cut that off the last one. I know I did. And you're kind of trying to get it to go up and down, the blade to go up and down. I did it at a little bit of a 45, and you can actually see it. I don't think it matters a whole lot. All right. And there we go. So I'm going to set that aside because I have one that's already dried. I'll bring over my board. This is the board I'm going to use for this one. And I'm hoping it'll work because I did already wax it. And so I'm hoping the glue will stick to it, but we will find out. I'm using the Moldings 3 for my little extra embellishments. And of course you put in some cornstarch. Let's see, I think because this is a smaller board, I haven't used that one yet, but I think I'm going to use this one. These are so pretty. I don't know if you've noticed, if you haven't used these yet, they were designed so they would plug into each other. So you have this end, which is open. So if you're doing a longer piece, this then will just fit right into the next one, which was very well thought out. But of course it's coming from the sisters, so what do we expect? We expect new innovation. All right. So I just shoved the clay in. Just, just make sure that you're going over. Pull all this extra off and save it for later. I'll actually use a paint blade this time so you can see how well it works. All right. This is a little tight on the sides here more than most molds. So there's little extra on the side here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop that. Oh, isn't that pretty? Oh, I love that. All right. I'm going to put the glue right onto the board, and I'm going to go ahead and glue it wet. I've got a little funky piece there. Pull that off. Let's see, and we're going to center this. I'm going to have that as my center. Just kind of line it up, eyeball it. Of course, I eyeballed it on the last one and I was a little off. So, measuring's not necessarily a bad thing. And then I'm just going to cut the ends. I love this tool. I use this more than probably any other tool when I'm doing projects. I use it to cut the clay. I use it to, when I'm using the new DIY maker's powders, to scoop it out. Same with the dust. It just helps you pull them right out. The paint color I used on this, because that was a question I got, is DIY's Crinoline, which I love. It's just such a warm ivory. And it's just, yeah, there's certain colors, you know, they're your go-to colors. This is one of my go-to colors. That and the Bohemian Blue, which was what the other sample board was. That blue was DIY's Bohemian Blue. Another go-to. If you haven't used these colors, you should try them because they're just gorgeous. So on this, I am not going to antique it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. I'm hoping I'm centered. I'll grab a tape measure just in case. Let's make this one right. Okay. Oh yeah, that's 2 and 5/8, 1 and 5/8. So I'll just scoot it over a smidge. Okay. Now I'm going to do the bottom piece. And I think I'm going to use this one. Once again, looks like I already have cornstarch in there, but we'll be extra careful. Oops. Pulled too much product out. That's what I get for using my finger on that one. And I think that this might be a little bit on the short side. I think I measured it yesterday and I just now remembered that this might come out a little short. So when you're running your knife or your paint blade down the your mold, do it kind of at a 45 so that you're helping to keep your product in the mold and not just pull it out. Also just kind of gives you a better cut. Oh yeah, I haven't used this one. This is so pretty. Keep coming. That's where I pulled it out. Let's see. Oh, yay. Okay. It is. It is. Oh, because I measured last time that way. Okay. So I'm going to set that aside, and that is perfect. So put a little glue down. Put this on. Once again, I kind of want to center it a little bit. So cute. And trim. So I'm going to let this just get a little bit of a skin on it. I have painted them wet, and that's fine too. You just have to be really careful with when you're pushing down on your brush not to take away any of the details. So if you don't want to take away any detail and you don't want to, you know, risk it, you can just wait until there's a little bit of a shell on it. It's dried just a little bit. I've also used my hair dryer. I did that on this other piece. That might be one of the reasons why I have a little bit more cracking. I don't know. But if you don't mind the cracking, use your hair dryer. Just use it on a low heat setting. Just kind of lightly go over it. So I will be right back. Okay, I dried that a little bit, and then I also went ahead and started to paint it. I'm painting it the same color I used for the background. I'm just using a small brush so I can get into the little nooks and crannies of these molds. Make sure you get your top, especially if you're painting from this direction. A lot of times I'll flip over my piece or change directions, and I realize, oh, I haven't even painted. Now I just got a little bit of paint there. You could either, with a Q-tip, you know, wipe it up, or you could just not worry about it, because in the big picture, it's probably not going to show up that much. It's showing up a lot right now because I did already wax this, and I already put a dark wax over it also. So it's just shows the difference in color with the dark wax over it though. And just go along being careful about trying to not put too much paint up here. But like I said, if you haven't waxed, which usually is your last step, it's not going to matter. All right. Now I'm going to put a cameo in the middle. This is a cameo I have. This is resin. And you just want to get this painted up. I'm actually going to use, I think, that other one. But I just wanted to show you how. Just get the paint in there. And then once you get the paint in there, you can go along and just kind of fix up any paint strokes you got on it. Try to get a little closer here so you can see. Since these are tiny, all right. Yep. So I think I do want to stick with that one. Oh, but that's awfully pretty, isn't it? Okay, but I'm going to stick with this one because it is dry. So I'm going to leave this one without any dark wax or any extra wax on it. And this, I'm going to use a little bit of dark wax, but first, that's the wrong brush. And I'm sure you've heard me say, as far as my brushes are concerned, especially when I'm doing small projects, I have these brushes and they're marked. This is wax, so that means it is white wax or clear wax. White wax, I mark which brushes are which. Some of them are really obvious because this is obviously a dark wax because you can see it. Let's see. So I'm just gonna get the wax in there. Just kind of work it in. You can paint these pieces and especially the resin ones, and use a hair dryer on them to get them to the paint to dry quickly. Let's get that aside. And now I'm going to do the dark wax. Sorry, I keep reaching in front of everything. This is going to look really ugly, but you just go in there and push the wax in. And don't panic. It doesn't stay ugly. And then I'm going to grab a paper towel here. And then you're going to wipe back. And the nice thing about adding the darker wax is then you get more detail of the cameo. You get to see how pretty she is. Let's kind of get down there, those cracks, and wipe that away around. And there you go. I might change my mind about waxing that. We will see. All right, this is feeling like it's dry. I do want to, I did miss a piece. All right. I'm going to, just in case, dry this with the hair dryer real quick, and then we'll go on to the next step.